So welcome everyone to the second day of opening to the descent of peace and force. Before we start the session, let's just step back into a few moments silence. So warm greetings to you all. The session today will be about shifting the status of our consciousness and living in the true consciousness, both very relevant and important factors in our sadhana. So it should be a very interesting session. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you, James. Namaste to everyone. So yesterday we were mostly talking about, because whenever we want to go up, we must have seen, like imagine that there is a basement and you are trying to go up to get some light. There would be creepy crawly creatures who will be getting onto you and trying to pull you down. So that image is very helpful, because that's what happens when we try to ascend the ladder of our consciousness. Creepy crawly creatures from below, they come, stick to us, and they pull us down. The old thoughts, the old feelings, the old storylines, they'll want to become very important, and they would want all your attention and would not let you climb up. So yesterday we were talking uh, how to not be convinced of those storylines and patterns and thoughts and feelings, and that we have to let them go, and so that we can make the climb upwards. So mostly yesterday we were taking up some things from the synthesis of yoga, and just today to wind that up and to begin with the next half, which James introduced, stationing the consciousness above, it in a true station rather than in a false station. That we will come on to as we go through a few lines of Savitri, which are also relevant in the sense of what we were doing yesterday, that you have to cast away the sense mind for the time being, so that you can go higher up and bring down the true light and true consciousness. Because if we remain circling in our thoughts and feelings, then there is no escape. You can't go up. Those creepy crawly creatures won't let you go up. So for the time being, we have to cast away the sense mind, the emotional mind. And there are enough examples in Savitri, hints and clues and pointers, which point towards this in both Ashupati's yoga and Savitri's yoga. So we will touch upon that today initially. Then we will go to a floor higher up. So again, I think it's good to start with Sri Aurobindo's words. To quiet your mind means to stop thinking about the things that disturb you and let the peace and power manifest themselves and work. So as we are climbing up the stairs in our, one can say, the palace, in Ashupati's yoga, we find a couple of hints, towards that climbing up the ladder. A call was on him from intangible heights, indifferent to the little outpost mind. He dwelt in the wideness of the eternal's reign. So this little outpost mind all the time, which is taking in the sensory input and making its interpretations and engaging all the time in it, not letting us go upwards. We have to stop that engagement, indifferent to the little outpost mind. And then we have in the parable for the search for the soul, while Savitri is grieving that Satyavan is gone away, and a voice comes and tells us what to do. So the voice replied, it talks to Savitri and says, "Remember why thou camest. Find out thy soul, recover thy hid self. In silence, seek God's meaning in thy depths. Then mortal nature change to the divine. Then open God's door, enter into his trance." And then it says, "Cast thought from thee, that nimble ape of light. In his tremendous hush, stilling thy brain, his vast truth wake within and know and see." So the knowing and seeing has to happen through that true consciousness, not through the nimble ape of life, which is the light, which is the thought. Like a curtain, it's always in front of our sight. Cast from thee sense that veils thy spirit's sight. So if all the time I'm engaged in that sensory input and the interpretations, I don't have the spirit's sight. Cast from thee sense that veils thy spirit's sight in the enormous emptiness of thy mind. We were earlier talking of emptiness yesterday. In the enormous emptiness of thy mind, thou shalt see the eternal's body in the world. So for any true knowing, we have to step back from the surface consciousness, which is all the time thinking and feeling and interpreting. And then Savitri listens to the voice and she sits. Obedient to a high command, she sat. Time, life, death were passing incidents. And what are these doing? Passing incidents which engage us so much, obstructing with their transient view her sight. Her sight that must break through and liberate the God imprisoned in the visionless mortal man. The inferior nature born into ignorance still took too large a place. It veiled herself and must be pushed aside to find her soul. So this pushing aside for the time being is hinted at again and again. Earlier indifferent to the outpost mind, and now pushed aside to find her soul. And one example that we can take here is, how, for example, when we are playing football or rugby, you have the ball in your hand. Now all that is on your mind is, how do I make it reach the other post? And from left and right, there are people trying to stop you. But all that matters to you is to reach the other end. So when we are wanting to climb inwards and higher, in our consciousness, there will be pulls from the lower nature taking us down, but constantly we just have to ignore those pulls. And there will be falls, there will be errors and slippery slopes, but again we will have to jump back and again station to get the higher light down. Yeah, then again in Ashupati's yoga, a seer was born, a shining guest of time. For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. So they talk about, this golden lid that is as if blocking the true sight. And since he was able to break through, for him, mind is like it's like a lid that is covering the true sight. For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. His center was no more in earthly mind. So again, changing the center, changing our station of consciousness. His center was no more in earthly mind. His soul stood free, a witness and a king. Yesterday we were talking of the witnessing consciousness. Absorbed no more in the moment-ridden flux, where mind incessantly drifts as on a raft, hurried from phenomenon to phenomenon. Whatever we listen, hear, touch, taste, smell, see, all the time the mind keeps on commenting and listening to those inputs. So that has to really stop if the upward climb has to happen. Again, an example of how mind acts like a screen. It doesn't let us see truly. The toiling thinker widened and grew still. Wisdom transcended, touched his quivering heart. His soul could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. So thought is portrayed as although luminous, but it's still a bar, still like a limit which doesn't let us go forward. Mind screened no more the shoreless infinite. The screen, that curtain is taken away. There only were silence and the absolute. Out of that stillness, mind newborn arose. So whenever we are resting, all the empty pockets of time that we have in between the 24 hours that we have, whenever we rest our mind in that stillness and silence, true stillness and silence, then as if a mind is taken dip in the holy water of the Ganges river, and it comes out from that newborn. Out of that stillness, mind newborn arose and woke to the truths one inexpressible, so that a true knowing can come. Again, a few hints for us to see that how it is happening, all this climb upwards. His days were a long growth to the Supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots on sustenance from occult spiritual fount. So yesterday we were talking of how there is also another line, plunged his roots into the infinite. Climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. Then another few lines, a silence overhead, an inner voice, a living image seated in the heart. So two movements that Sri Aurobindo talks of, the inward movement towards the psychic consciousness and the upward movement. Yeah. And then true knowing comes, and true discernment is there, which knows what to do, what action to take. There is a knowing. One glance could separate the true and false, or raise its rapid torch fire in the dark to check the claimants crowding through mind's gates. So there is a discernment, there is an intelligence in operation which knows what is the action to be done. It is a discerning emptiness, if at all we can call it emptiness. There is an intelligence there that knows. Yeah, so I think this was just to round up what we were trying to understand yesterday, that the lower nature has to be kept aside for a while so that the climb upwards can happen. And today we are going to talk about how to make that station above. So for this, letters on yoga, as I was sharing yesterday, is very much recommended, and we will not be able to cover everything that Sri Aurobindo talks about through many letters and very helpful letters. But I have taken a few bits and pieces from here and there. So he talks about a few fundamental realizations that have to happen in integral yoga. First is the psychic change, which we find in the depths of our heart, the psychic change, so that a complete devotion can be the main motive of the heart. Because as Sri Aurobindo says, that the psychic is naturally devoted to the divine and the ruler of thought, life and action in constant union with the mother and in her presence. So yesterday we were talking, in what moment, what decision to take, what word to speak. And for a long time, our older patterns continue. But more and more, this consciousness is awake. Mother's presence we are invoking within us. It tells us whether it was a right word to speak or not. It tells us whether it was a right decision taken or not. Whether I took a decision under influence of a pattern or an insecurity. So although we may not be immediately able to correct it, immediate correction may not be possible every time, but there is a discernment that knows, that tells us whether it was a true or not true action, whether it was aligned with the true consciousness or not. So that is the first one, the psychic change. We have to rely upon that. Then the second one is, he talks about the descent of peace, power, light, etc. of the higher consciousness through the head and heart in the whole being, occupying the very cells of the body. So this time we are, in this workshop, we are mostly concerned about the second one, knowing that the first one to some or other extent is happening already for the people who are here today. So the descent of peace, power, light of the higher consciousness. Third is the perception of the one and divine infinitely, everywhere, the mother everywhere, and living in that infinite consciousness. So this time we are not going to explore the third one, but at least first and second, because they are parallel to each other, we'll be taking. And then he talks about the basis of realization, where he talks about the station of consciousness. Where is it stationed? So he says the four things on which the realization has to be based. First, on a rising to a station above the mind. Second, on the opening out of the cosmic consciousness, again above the brain lost consciousness. And third, on the psychic opening deep in the depths of our heart, on the descent of the higher consciousness with its peace, light, force, knowledge, ananda, into all the planes of the being, down to the most physical. All this has to be done by the working of the mother's force, aided by your aspiration, devotion, and surrender. That is the path. The rest is a matter of working out of these things, for which you have to have faith in the mother's working. So since all of these will be happening differently for different people, so there is no one set formula that, oh, first this happens and then that happens. For somebody in parallel, many things may be happening. For somebody, it may be first a psychic opening, then a spiritual opening above the head. For some, it may be in parallel, and for some, it may be first above and then deep in the heart. So that is to each his own. And we can't force that in one particular direction. Yeah, so anything so far, anyone? Any question or a doubt here?
I mean, yes, definitely this is the right lines from Surya or letters of yoga. But I think if we can have some experiences, meaning some simple, walkthroughs through it, I think that will, it's like, here's the theory, now let's go to the practical.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And there is no
Because
point of the
then,
theory if not for the practical.
exactly,
But I think
exactly.
it's also good to know the key things, because we would
100%.
not be able to talk about the descent if I'm all the time wanting and wanting within my,
Exactly.
the surface
Very true.
consciousness, right?
Very, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we will be actually experimenting the part that you are interested in. Before, after we go through a bit of more keywords that have to be taken care of.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Monica ji,
Yes,
namaste.
Sanjeev.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, I joined little late, so I saw the last slide only. If I had missed anything important, can you please repeat
Yeah,
that?
you missed something important because it's Savitri and Savitri is important.
Okay.
But
Oh,
I'll be sharing the slides so you can have a
okay.
look. I was just winding up the yesterday's session, taking a
Okay.
few lines from Savitri, which you can go through later on your own also.
Okay.
And then this was the first slide that you saw.
Okay.
Okay. So this is again, yesterday also we were maybe hinting at the stillness or immobility if there is a want for the climb to happen. And also kind of in Hindi we have a word called patrata, that the patra is ready, the container is ready for the descent. So the being has to be absolutely still. Now mother talks about this stillness and she says that the moment you say inwardly to your body still, nothing should move. So let's try this stillness. So for maybe, I think 3 minutes, let's take 3 minutes. And all that we have to do is make the body still, inwardly command, hush the body, the mind, and the emotions. And for 2 to 3 minutes, nothing should move. So let's experiment how well ready the container is. It will be nice if we keep touch with the body, and also checking inwardly in the mind, in the feelings, as if you are supervising the whole being and nothing is moving anywhere. Nothing is more important right now. We can think about the things later, not right now. You can feel yourself like a mountain also, if that helps. Absolutely still. And those of us who are able to experience the stillness, let us take this opportunity to maybe go into the depths of our heart, deep, horizontally going deep into the heart. And as if Mother is present there, you can have a picture of the Mother there. Look at that, she's there, deep in the heart. Try to just be with that picture, Mother's image, a living image seated in the heart. Make it concrete. In this tremendous hush, stilling thy brain, inwardly you can have a look. The brain is also quiet, still. We will try to make another movement, again like an experiment. Now we'll go upwards, above the head. Since the being is ready, the container is still, receptive. We'll go higher upwards, a few inches above the head, and feel like as if there is a solar panel above your head. Like a mirror, Mother says, looking upwards. And my duty is to keep it still, receptive and still. And that mirror has no limits. If you stretch above your head, left, right, in front, or at the back, you can go further and further and further, stretching your consciousness and seeing that it's infinite, vast above your head. Everywhere you go, there is vastness above the head. Maheshwari is the aspect of the Mother, wideness and vastness. Everywhere you go, above the head, vast, stretching to infinitudes. As if you're taking a walk. And after you've taken your walk, you can again look upwards. above the head, as if there is a solar panel or a mirror looking upwards, waiting and very patiently waiting, no hurry, still and waiting. Staying there, stabilizing. And if one is getting restless of the stability, then again you can make a movement, go deep in the heart. And see Mother's image here, living image seated in the heart. And wherever there's restlessness in the being, you can just look at it, that part, and make it quiet, hush. So one can keep alternating station if there is a need, stationing above the head, few inches above the head, looking upwards, or stationing deep in the depths of the heart. You will see that if the moment you begin to involve in the thoughts and the feelings and the stories, you cannot station the consciousness above. It kind of distracts. Either you can ignore it and station yourself above, indifferent to the little outpost mind, or you can get engaged. Both cannot be done at the same time. One can also do it open eyes. You can experiment that. Even in open eyes, the station is above the head. But we can start with closed eyes first. So in the beginning, it's nice for us to experiment it completely in the solitudes. And then it becomes necessary, actually in integral yoga, it becomes necessary that we have this meditativeness and the station above, even while our interactions and day-to-day workings of our life. So that's in integral yoga, this becomes very necessary. But we see that when we are able to do it, when we station, slowly you feel first, as Sri Aurobindo says, the descent of the peace. And if we are able to hold the station above for a longer duration, then first, usually what descends is the peace. Now, why peace? Because peace helps in stability of the Adhar. It makes our being even more receptive and peaceful and still, so that after that the other things can come, like force, mother's force, and which will come and slowly through all the centers, whichever centers are ready, until that center, that force goes. So it may be that only the mind centers are ready, so you will feel the descent of first peace and then force only in the upper centers, like the Ajna Chakra, the throat center, or maybe through the nose, and here one feels the descent of the force. But if the lower being is not ready, if the heart center is not ready, and if the lower vital centers are not ready, then the force is not able to penetrate there. But the more we are able to station the consciousness above and also make a connect with the psychic in the depths of our heart, we see that the force slowly has, as if like channels open, and it can go further down and down and down and down. And it slowly works on transforming and bringing that light and force, which will change the lower nature. As if somebody has opened a tap from above, and the water rushes down. So the centers in the heart is the emotive center. We know about that. In front there is the emotive center. At the back there is the psychic consciousness, the psychic being, being center, fourth dimension, as the mother says. And as we, through our emotions, the lesser and lesser our demands become from the material existence, then deep, if we go deeper, we are able to get in touch with the true psychic consciousness and not the frontal emotive consciousness, where we are stuck all the time. And the lower centers are the centers of ambition and desire, the stomach and the lower one, the navel center. Ambition, desire, greed, lust, all of that is lower. And if the force slowly comes down and down and down, and if you can feel the working of mother's force even in the lower vital centers, the tummy and below the tummy, Sri Aurobindo says it's already a good step forward. It's a very good achievement if that has been done. It means there is a lot of detachment in the way we are living right now. That you're not expecting contentment from people and things and workings of material world. Then it can come to the vital centers also, tummy and the navel center. So if we are ready, then we can open our eyes, because it's good to have open eyes and yet have the same stability. It happens gradually in time, but it is good to give ourselves time slots, like maybe in the morning 10 minutes you sit every day, and try to station consciousness above the head, feel the descent, because the longer we are able to station it at the right place, we feel the descent. all of us feel the force coming down. And there should be no eagerness to fasten the process, to make it quicker, because mother knows the best. And that is why Sri Aurobindo talks about that psychic is the safest way. So keep working with the psychic consciousness in the depths of the heart, and also go upwards. Because when both the centers are open, then it works very nicely and safely. Because psychic has no agitation in it, that, oh, this should happen very quickly. No. One has devotion, one has faith in the mother, and we know that in time things are happening, whatever mother thinks needful. So that's why this change is very helpful, that deep in the heart we can station, and then because there is a restlessness in the being, one wants to again move. So where to move? You move upwards. Station yourself up above, like an open mirror looking upwards. Make it station there and stabilize it there. Then again, if you want to move, you go deep in the heart, or wherever comes naturally to us. So these are the two centers which are recommended also in, for example, letters in yoga. But for the descent to happen, in my personal experience, I have seen that stationing the consciousness above the head, and as mother says, keeping it like a mirror upwards, very stable and still, and waiting as long as it may require. It doesn't matter, because we are not waiting to fulfill your ambition here, right? There is no ambition to be fulfilled. We are not going to work like a Rakshas or a Asura, who wants for his own ego the realization. We want because we want to make the life divine, and the lower members have to change. So there is a tremendous amount of patience even when I am holding the mirror upwards. No agitation. There is also a very nice, very, very beautiful meditation, guided meditation by Shraddhalu Rana Day on this, which I will share on the group, where he keeps on coming back to the contact above, and then again visits the whole being, and then again contact above, and then visits the whole being, so that the descent can enter the being and penetrate each part of the being. So that's a very helpful meditation. Those of us who are interested, I'll share it later.
I think
Yeah, so just what we, yes.
You're
Yes,
talking
Anjali
about
ji?
yes, Shraddhalu's. Earlier I tried it, but I think after today's experience, it would be better that now I can understand what Shraddhalu is doing. Today's experience was absolutely no hurry, nothing, no. And if you want, you can stillness, peace in the mind, heart, body. Yes, thank you. Very good.
Absolutely, yes,
Very
yes. And we will see that in the beginning, if we are not in a hurry, that's the main thing, because there's nothing I want to achieve here. All
In fact,
that
मन
we
ही
are
नहीं
trying
कर
to
रहा
do,
था कि आँख खोलें.
exactly, yeah. But आँख खोलनी पड़ेगी क्योंकि ये integral yoga है. है ना? So that's the difference. Sri Aurobindo says कि बहुत अच्छा लगता है, आप ऊपर जाके बैठ जाओ. But ऊपर जाके बैठना काम नहीं है. The calm is, the work is to make that descent happen in the neither members, the lower members of the family. And so that in the working times also, in the day-to-day interactions also, slowly, gradually, with time, we
Samata
can
can be
maintain.
maintained.
Yes.
Equanimity and samata.
Yes. And in the beginning also, we'll see that for a long time, we cannot sit. Because the adhar is not totally ready. It resists. You will sit for 5 minutes, or maybe say 10 minutes. After that, the being will, the body will want to move. It's not ready for that, too much of that force, and I feel it, that I just want to move then. So it's okay to take it slow, because we can't force this process. And then in the day-to-day time, when we are involved in our activities and the mechanical doings of the day-to-day, we can again remember the two centers, and we go deep in the heart, invoke mother's presence there, or we go station ourselves above, Because if I'm not stationing myself above or in deep in the heart, we will be actually engaged somewhere or the other. We can be sure about that.
Absolutely.
So to not continue that false engagement.
Because
Yes.
I have also read that supramental force descends from that Sahasrardha, right? So that is the point that is above
Yeah,
the head.
actually, yeah, supramental will take some time. So we won't jump to the very last level.
Yeah.
But Sri Aurobindo,
Shanti aa
you know,
jaye.
so Sri Aurobindo talks about that there are gradations.
Yeah.
There are gradations, and we are completely fine just to at least step by step go upwards in those gradations. For example, the gradations above he talks of are the higher mind, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind, then the over mind, and then the super mind. So the supramental to come and completely envelop and change, it takes time. We can't, he says in Letters on Yoga that this jump is not possible. But what is possible for us is to station above. When we are stationing above the consciousness, two things we will experience. One is that we can experience this wideness above, which we were trying, like you keep a walk and there is just wideness. You can go stretch as far as you can above your head. And when, in one of the experiences, I was just experimenting it with myself, and the word that came to me was Maheshwari. Maheshwari's aspect of the mother. Because that is what brings wideness and vastness. So that is active then. Then what we touch when stationing above is, first we also open to the intuitive mind, the higher mind, the intuitive mind. And if there is a stability, a stillness, and a continuous opening without agitation, then you will have insights, more connection with the outer world also in a different sense, in an insightful sense. The insights come, they just come. It appears like a thought, but it's not coming from the logical thought. You did not think about it, it just came to you. That we open to. And also the other thing that we open to, which we won't be maybe able to discuss that much, but it's there if we, those of us who want to read. He says that there is the central being, the Jivatman, which is seated above. So when we go inside, we make connect with the inner being, also the psychic being. And when we go above, actually we make touch with the Jivatman or the central being. And both these movements are considered very important in integral yoga, both of them. So psychic being is part of evolution. It takes part in the evolution. Jivatman, Sri Aurobindo says that it stands above the evolution. But it is there. It's like a direct touch with the divine. So both these movements we get in touch with when we make the station not in the brain but above. And slowly supramental will take care of itself. We don't have to actually bother about the supramental at all. The only thing we have to take care of right now is that wherever there is poison in the being, we don't engage. And who will know what is poison? We know. We know. So because of for letting go of that poison, we are trying to go above and bring a greater purity, so that the poison gets also transformed into some kind of amrit. But for the supramental part, we won't worry right now. It's like, samudra manthan hota hai na, to asuron ko sabse pehle I want the nectar, I want the nectar. What will an asura do with the nectar? What will it do? It will make itself immortal. What will happen if an asura becomes immortal? So first we have to purify ourselves. We have to make ourselves without any demands. The surrender has to be without any demands. Just for the love of surrender, we have to surrender. Because we have fallen in love with the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that is enough. And then all that, this in itself is nectar of supramental force. What else is this? The very fact that we have gotten in touch with Mother Sri Aurobindo in this very life. Who wants more? A supramental will come. So
After some time, maybe after we station and for certain amount of time, when you come to the reality again, there will be a disequilibrium with the outer world that
Yeah.
we are living. So
yes,
there might be some time to adjust with the surroundings again.
yes. And it is a very important movement, this difficulty that you are talking of. Because see, integral yoga means that each part of the being has to turn to that purity, that truth consciousness, and not only the spirit, right? The
Yeah.
spirit can station itself above and it is very happy and peaceful, right? But the moment I come down, I see nothing has changed. So this downward thing has to change, and it is completely fine if we find a gulf between the both. The very fact that I'm finding a gulf, it means that there is some consciousness which has awakened in me, which sees that something needs to change in my day-to-day life. That itself is beautiful. Now that the gulf is there, I will make those necessary steps which are required to bridge that gulf. Because for a person who is very well accustomed to the basement, he doesn't feel a gulf from light and darkness. For him, darkness is life. But for you who has tasted a bit of light somewhere, and you also see the darkness in your being, now the life will become a little bit of torture. That how come this category is there? But when I'm sitting in meditation, so peaceful. The moment I interact with the person, discord, disharmony. This is what has to change. So it's the movement that you're talking of, it's a necessary part of the process. And we don't have to fear.
All life is yoga.
All life is yoga. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what, Mother says, the golden mantra that all of us are aware of: remember and offer. So when I come back from my meditation and now I'm engaging in the world, to continue to remember and offer whatever we are doing. Mother, I'm going to the office. Mother, I'm going to talk to that person. Mother, this phone call I'm attending. Mother, I'm going to the bathroom. Everything, each part of life has to be touched by the mother. To be open to the mother's light. And then it is not possible that the thing that you experience during your meditations, it does not influence then the day-to-day acts. Make thy daily ways a pilgrimage. Savitri. Daily ways. Going, driving, meeting people, interacting with the family members. His days were a long growth to the Supreme. This we have to do. In each act, we have to just invoke just the divine presence. Because we know that there is a gulf that needs to be bridged. And it happened. We are taken care of. Slowly, gradually. And because we are sticky, you will see all of us, have weak points. We have soft spots, as I call them. There are areas in our life where we can say that, we are really relatively detached. No expectations or demands from these spheres of my life. And then there are areas and people, or maybe at work or in family, there are areas in your life which are your soft spots. If a thought comes from that domain, then it is very hard for you to leave that thought and think of the mother. The first thing that you do is to indulge in that storyline. Then later on you may remember, oh, I forgot the mother. So all of us have these, and this is what has to change slowly. That a complete reliance on the mother without any expectations or demands from those, specifically from those soft spot areas. And it comes gradually with time, because it's something which is very sticky, very sticky. And when it gives us pain, that area of our life, when it brings us pain, then further we are propelled that if it has brought me pain, it means still I have some expectation or desire from here, this place. So again, I go above or deep in the heart, further stabilize myself there. I don't blame the other people. No. It is just a trigger for me to let me know that still I have some hopes left. Still I have some hopes left. No? And further for me to stabilize and concretize my own experience. Because it will happen and keeps on happening that we fall again and again in the slippery slope of the older kind of ways of thinking and feeling. Again and again we will fall, because the grooves are set. You know what is a groove? Like a slide. In places like water parks, they have slides, and in the slide they have grooves. So once you are touching the top of the groove, it's very difficult not to fall completely into the slide, no? And if you go into one slide, then you go another and another and another. After 1 hour, you wake up and you realize, oh, too many slippery slopes I took. Come back to the mother. So if we are more vigilant, if we want to invoke mother in our day-to-day life even more, then we will be getting aware at the very first click that, oh, I'm getting lost, and stepping back into mother's consciousness, true consciousness, or stationing above the head. But this keeps on happening, and when it happens, it is just for me to realize that it is still my weakness, my imperfection, which takes me down that slippery slope again. Why? Because the slopes are set, effortless. So going down a slippery slope doesn't require any effort. But to stop at the top of the slippery slope while you're about to go down, that requires effort. Because there is a momentum, all these patterns of our behavior, thinking and feeling, they have a momentum. So momentum is what? If you throw a ball, it takes time before it completely comes to a halt. In physics, we have the concept of momentum. So these sanskaras that we have, these vrittis that we have, the patterns that we have, they have a momentum, they have a force with which they are running. And like that, with a click of a finger, they don't come to a halt. So gradually, dhakke kha ke, tha tha tha, and tha tha tha, that like that it stops. Ultimately, it completely comes to a halt. So we don't have to get frustrated while we go down those slopes again. The moment we have the chance to wake up again, we wake up again, and we again are in our true consciousness, realizing that it was again error on our part, and that it will keep on happening, and which is not a problem at all. This has to change slowly. Yeah, anything more over here, anyone? So just then taking the opportunity to read a few lines from Letters on Yoga. Again, whatever we have discussed, it's just a confirmation again of that it has to be done. It is required. All the consciousness in the human being, who is the mental embodied in living matter, has to rise so as to meet the higher consciousness. The higher consciousness has also to descend into the mind, life and matter. So not only to rise, but also to descend. In that way, the barriers will be removed and the higher consciousness will be able to take up the whole lower nature and transform it by the power of the supermind, which again will come by default slowly as gradually we climb up. The lower consciousness ascends towards the higher to join it, what we were trying to do, stationing upwards. The lower consciousness ascends towards the higher to join it. The higher descends into the lower to transform it. It is the rule of the consciousness in this sadhana. The power of concentration above the head is to bring peace, silence, and liberation from the body sense. The identification with the mind, life, and open the way for the lower physical consciousness to rise up, meet the higher consciousness above, and for the powers of the higher spiritual or divine to descend. So first we disidentify, disengage. We were talking about the witnessing part yesterday. Disengage so that we can rise up, and when we rise up, the descent comes down. For the powers of the higher consciousness to descend into the mind, life, and body. This is what is called in this yoga the spiritual transformation. So first is the psychic transformation, the psychic change, which we again connect in the depths of our heart, and then the spiritual, which we go above, where we touch the Jivatman, the central being. The rising above has to be followed by the descent of the higher consciousness into the different parts of the being. That, aided by the psychic development and aiding it, changes the external nature. This has to change. Sanjeev ji was talking about the external nature. That when I come interaction with the day-to-day thing, things are not changed. They are the same. So that has to slowly change. Again, so this is all confirmation from Sri Aurobindo that we get. There is a double movement in the sadhana, the divine consciousness, power, light, peace, descending into all the body. The consciousness from all the parts of the body rising upwards to meet. The descent and the ascent. The sadhana is based on the fact that a descent of forces from the higher plane and an ascent of the lower consciousness to the higher planes is the means of transformation of the lower nature. Although naturally it takes time and the complete transformation can only come by the supramental descent, your experiences here are forms of the widening experiences of the process. So the true will come with the supramental descent, but that doesn't mean that these baby steps don't need to be done. Of course, they have to be done. The practice of this yoga is double. One side is of an ascent of the consciousness to the higher planes. The other is of a descent of the power to the higher planes into the earth consciousness so as to drive out the power of darkness and ignorance and transform the lower nature. Very good example of this is you have a cup and the cup is full of dirty water. What happens when you continue the flow of fresh water on the cup? What happens? Slowly, all the dirty water is displaced and the fresh water remains. Gradually, slowly. So this has to continue. This descent, he says, higher planes into the earth consciousness so as to drive out the power of darkness. So this is the driving out. You are flooding it with the true consciousness so that the drive out is happening by default. To be above the mind, one must first realize the self above the mind and live there. Now he says that it is a concrete realization. Sirf कहने से नहीं चलेगा. Just in one session, if we talk about stationing above the conscious, above the head, that doesn't mean I have got a realization of the true self. So just by talking about it or thinking that I have got it, we don't get it. This has to be practically done, the experiment that we did today. That has not only to continue in our solitudes, has to begin with our solitude, but has to also continue in the empty pockets during the time that we have 24/7, plus then continue while we are engaged in the day-to-day activities. Can we station ourselves above in the true consciousness or deep in the heart? The consciousness above the head is what we call the higher or spiritual consciousness. It contains or supports all the higher planes, the higher worlds. When one begins to feel this always above, if you feel there is something above, if you are aware of something above, it is a great step forward in the sadhana. Then the consciousness can go up there and from there see, discern and control all that is in the mind, vital and body. So it's a discerning consciousness which can navigate the lower members, align them again and again in the true direction, in the pure right direction. If your consciousness rises above the head, that means that it goes beyond the ordinary mind to the center above, which receives the higher consciousness, or else towards the ascending levels of the higher consciousness itself. The first result is the silence and peace of the self, which is the basis of the higher consciousness. This may afterwards descend into the lower level. So the peace first is felt above, and then the peace also is felt in the lower centers. Light also can descend and force. The navel and the centers below it are those of the vital and the physical. Something of the higher force may have descended there. So this is what I was sharing with you earlier, that if we start from stationing our consciousness above and we feel the force trickling like a water down, 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 and he says that if it goes, touches your abdomen and also the lower area, it's a very good progress. Because that is what troubles us the most, the desiring self, the vital soul. That troubles us the most, the tummy and the below the tummy. So if there the disidentification has happened, then it means the channel has opened. You know what? You see, you clean the drain pipes. Mm-hmm. And if the muck gets cleared, then the water can flow freely. Mm-hmm. So it means some or the other degree of purification has already happened in the being, that the force can come down and down and down and touch those lower centers. Mm-hmm. The muck has been removed through purification. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there is a blockage that you will feel the force coming maybe until just the mind centers, up here, and throat center. And then below you don't feel. Why? Because still there is more purification to be done. And parallelly also happens that if we continue to feel the descent and to make it, invoke it, then we see that because of that descent also, as Sri Aurobindo was sharing, the darkness is removed. The dirty water from the cup is kind of displaced by the fresh stream of consciousness. So that also can parallelly happen. There are two movements that are necessary. One is the ascent through the increasing of peace and silence to its source above the mind. That is indicated by the tendency of the consciousness to rise out of the body to the top of the head and above, where it is easy to realize the self, which is the Jivatman, in all its stillness and liberation and wideness, and to open to the other powers of the higher consciousness. The other is the descent of the peace and silence, the spiritual freedom and wideness and the powers of higher consciousness as they develop into the lower, down to the most physical and even the subconscious. Now, how do we get to know that there has been change in the subconscious? Many a times through dreams. So our dreams are a very good indicator that there are changes happening at the subconscious level also. Because there we cannot lie, right? There we can't be hypocritical. That I think this has been done, but the dream will show you something else. It means it has not been done. So dreams are a very, very powerful indicator that the true consciousness has touched the, it's a few layers below also, undercurrent given. So when in your dream, if you remember your dreams, at times we remember, at times we don't. But if there are some significant dreams and you see yourself acting and making decisions in those dreams, and you're acting, okay, let me ask mother, for example. In the dream, you are asking the mother. It means there's some degree of change already happened. Yeah. That in the dream you are thinking that let me ask the mother. There you cannot fool yourself, no? I remember one of the dreams, a friend had shared a plane or something like a big machine which was flying, that was crashed. It has crashed. And now that it has crashed, it crashed just on the top of her house. And while she's thinking, okay, what now, she has to vacate the house because it is completely a disaster, the house. She's thinking, okay, let me take few important things from here, the crash site. And then, she's thinking, what do I take? And the moment a thought comes to her that, oh, what is most precious is already with me all the time.
Very good.
So that's a very concrete example that some true change at some level has happened. That you know what is most precious in your life. So these kind of experiences, they tell us that some level of subconscious change also has begun to happen. That you have truly begun to give importance to what is truly, truly important in your life. What deserves true importance. Not like in Savitri, there is this line, a treasure misspent, fruitlessly sold in the bazaar of blind destiny. This is what we do to our true consciousness. We sell it short for things which are not worth it. Yeah, so anything over here? Anyone?
So this double movement, that can you pin that slide? So the peace and silence has to come from above and not from below, or how it is, how to feel that, is there any?
So it comes usually from above. Below, all that we have is usually a chatter.
Okay. Not from the
Right.
heart center, not from the heart.
It can come, of course, it can come from the heart also. If parallel that movement is also happening, you are maintaining a touch with the psychic deep in the heart, and a true movement is happening there, it comes also from there, but also mostly it is felt from, even if I may not be aware of a descent, I may not even know the word descent, but if I am feeling a peace in the mind and not a chatter in the mind, it means some or the other descent has already started to happen. People don't even know the psychic word. Many people who are truly in touch with their psychic consciousness, they are not aware of the word psychic being. So it doesn't matter whether I'm aware of it or not. So it comes from the depth of the heart. If there is a stability in the heart and you are not all the time engaged in the emotive heart, in the disturbing movements of the emotions. So if there is a stability here, you feel the peace in the heart also. But if there is a descent, which is a descent from time to time for everyone, then we feel it in above the head also, and also in the mind we feel that peace and calm and quietude. And Sri Aurobindo says that quietude, it doesn't mean that the thoughts are gone. It just means that they may be there, but you are not, what you were talking yesterday, you are not giving petrol to them all the time. You're not fueling them, you're not engaging in them. So that maintains a certain level of quietude in the room.
Somewhere I have read Sri Aurobindo writes that can meditate at the heart center. That is more preferable than the mind center.
Yeah, so right now we are not collecting ourselves at any of these mind centers. I did not touch any of the mind centers myself also. Why?
Yeah.
One reason is because that is not my experience. So I can't talk about something which is not my experience. So heart center, absolutely. And that's the safest way, Sri Aurobindo says.
Yes.
That in the horizontal, like, you know, it's like if, see, this is your body. I'm just giving you an example. Not like a formula, but an example. If this is my body, this wide, and here is the starting of my heart, like this front part.
Yeah.
So what I do, and this is my back, I go as if deeper and deeper horizontally towards the back.
Yes.
And I find the mother here. And mother calls it the fourth dimension. In the depths of your heart. But why the fourth dimension? Because if we open the body, you won't find it anywhere. You won't find the Angushta Matra Purusha anywhere. But it is there. It's there. It's occupying from behind. So all that we can do is we go deeper, 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 horizontal depths of the heart, and we see mother's living image there, seated there. That is a very good center, as you said, for concentration or invoking mother's presence. And for our purposes in this workshop, we are talking of rising above the mind. We did not talk of any of the mind centers, but above the mind.
Above. Yes.
Sri Aurobindo talks about all these centers if you are interested in letters on yoga. Like the throat center is the physical mind. And here the center for will and also this is also again the mind only. But
Yes.
This is not my experience that I have placed my attention over here. My experience is more like if the descent comes from above, then it opens this also.
Okay.
So it's a byproduct of the process of descent. The opening of the wisdom or wisdom eye, Ajna Chakra, will.
Throat
Yes,
is the
Pranavji.
physical mind. What is that? Can you explain further? Throat center is the physical mind, you said.
Physical mind, Sri Aurobindo
Because
gives
the thing is, throat is basically like, can you call it a physical mind? There's something, can you explain that?
Yeah, see, one of the ways, again, it may be very limited way for me to explain, better to read letters on yoga itself. But what appears to me is it's a center for expression.
Yeah.
And I have seen a couple of examples where, for example, some of people I knew who had thyroid problems. And the center is here again for the thyroid also. When we are not expressing ourselves fully, what I want to express, when I'm not able to express, this goes haywire. And when I connect with the true consciousness and I am able to express fully, then it expresses itself in a more open way. And physical mind, Sri Aurobindo also uses another description of the physical mind is that which becomes a habit. The physical mind is one which is very connected with the habits that we have. That, oh, I get up early in the morning and the first thing I get is take lassi, for example. So this is something that is ingrained in my physicality. So that also Sri Aurobindo relates here with the physical mind. But I think it would be really good to read yourself and what part you resonate with, that would be really nice.
Yeah, because by one logic, probably mind is basically a subtle, it's a thought process. This is a physical thing is strong. Like one logic said, it will be little difficult to understand as the face of it. I can go through that, but then in the common man's language, mind is always a thinking center, and so it is always a point of expression. There's something new to me because it's physical mind, what you said, something, yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice if you search a physical mind on incarnate word. You will get a lot of things that would be revelatory. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes. So these centers, I think those of us who attend Dr. Basu's sessions, they may have heard directly from him also that these centers are like as if like a channel connecting the outer and the inner. And with the descent or with by any which way, if these centers are opening, we get some trickling of the true consciousness through these centers. So the channel is open and the true consciousness now communicates with the outer, molds the outer. So when through the descent, the centers open, and Sri Aurobindo calls it a safest way, because when they're opening from below upwards, it's not very safe. But then when they're opening from upwards and below, then it is a safer way, and there are lesser chances to get stuck at a zone where we don't need to be there. And also with the psychic, we are always safe. So that's why Sri Aurobindo recommends, Mother recommends, go find your psychic being, unite with it, and always maintain a connect with it. And in day-to-day terms, what is the psychic? Always choose what Sri Aurobindo says in the Aryan spirit, talking about who is an Aryan. He says, always making a choice of that which reveals the Godhead rather than that which conceals the Godhead within. That's the psychic consciousness which is aligning with that choice. What Nachiketa had chosen, using the Shreya over the prey. What is pleasant, he did not choose. He chose what is beneficial, what is important and good and right. So that's the work of psychic consciousness, this wheel alignment that we do. And also that it is very devoted, it is already like a magnet, it is devoted to the divine. So that also is a very big help. Psychic is by default, it is dedicated, given itself to the divine. That part in us which feels an affinity towards Mother Sri Aurobindo, the psychic part. So I think these are just some confirmations which I wanted to share, and there is no end to it. We don't get discouraged if there is too much on my slides. They are just examples. They are nothing more than that. And it is better always to read them ourselves. So that's why I recommended to pick up the book and we go through. If one can remain always in the higher consciousness, so much the better. But why does one not remain always there? Because the lower is still part of the nature and it pulls you down towards itself. If on the other hand, the lower is transformed, it becomes of one kind with the higher, and there is nothing lower than to pull down. This is what has to change with the descent, the lower members change. Transformation means that the higher consciousness or nature is brought down into the mind, vital, and the body, and takes the place of the lower. There is a higher consciousness of the true self which is spiritual, but it is above. If one rises above into it, then one is free as long as one remains there. This is the problem that we face. Ki meditation mein to theek hai, but what after that? So if one rises above into it, then one is free as long as one remains there. But if one comes down into or uses the mind, vital or body, and if one keeps any connection with life, one has to do so either to come down and act from the ordinary consciousness, or else to be in the self but use mind, life and body. Then the imperfections of these instruments have to be phased and mended. They can only be mended by transformation. So this is what Sanjeev ji was sharing. So this has to be phased. all the imperfections of our life has to be faced. वहीं पे तो हमारा काम है. That is our karm kshetra, that's our factory. We have battlefield. There we have to invoke and stay friends with Krishna in the battlefield. And for transformation, there is a very good example which I personally like to use again and again. It's like, you go to the higher plains, like for example, some mountain or say Ladakh or Mount Everest or wherever. And whenever, for example, let's say Ladakh, it's approachable from here. So when I go to Ladakh, they say that you have to take 48 to 72 hours of period of acclimatization with the environment. So they recommend that don't have lots of fluids, take lots of rest, and don't do too much physical work while for 72 hours, till the time 72 hours. Right? Then the body gets adapted to the thin air and the environment, and then you can, after that, you can engage in the tourism or wherever you want to go. But imagine that I go to to Ladakh and then I come back to Delhi the very same day. Then I again go to Ladakh and then I again come back to Delhi. Then the body feels no need for acclimatization. उसको लग रहा है ये रह तो रही नहीं है लद्दाख में. Why should I acclimatize? Right? So I go up and then I totally indulge myself down. Then I again go up. Then I go again totally indulge myself down. Like this transformation is not required. Why? Because I don't need it. But when I more and more strive for above, strive, there is a striving there for above, then the transformation has to happen. The descent has to happen, which has to take care of the transformation. Because now the being knows that there is a striving, so adaptation is required to the climate above. Now I'm not indulging in the climate in Delhi again and again. So what we do, we are mostly like a pendulum in the beginning. We get a very good taste above, but then out of habit we are pulled downwards. Then again we get a good taste above, then out of habit we are pulled downwards. So like this and this and this and this, it goes on for a long time until I realize that too much indulgence here not benefiting me. So let me strive above, stationing above. There the transformation, or what we were talking, adaptation, has a place. Now it will happen because somebody is wanting it, somebody is wanting it, somebody is wanting it. So we have to want it. So today, again, the day 2, I had thought, whatever I had thought, I think we had touched upon all those points. Basic point was to station ourselves above the brain lodged ordinary mind, the ordinary consciousness. And I think we touched that space a little, but it is up to us how much it is important in our life and how much we want to truly get the transformation done. So before we leave, again, as yesterday, if we can have 4 or 5 minutes of music and with Sunil Das music. If there is any question, of course, we can take it first and then go to the music. Any question, anyone? Okay. So let us, and whenever we are troubled, there may be many questions troubling us at times. Yes, Sanjeev ji, yes, please.
Yeah, so this double movement has to happen simultaneously, right? Not from the above from the descent has to start.
So what my job is,
Yeah.
that my job as an individual being who is striving for something higher and purer, is whenever I find myself confused in this consciousness here, I strive for above.
Okay.
That is my job. I think at this moment, let us take care only of our job. My job is that whenever I find myself entangled here again in the slippery slopes, I don't remain there. I strive for above. Once you keep striving more and more for above, the second movement will actually take care of itself automatically. It has to.
Yeah.
You know what used to happen, we have so many Indian stories, mythological stories, where if a asura is, you know, like on one feet, he's like doing the sadhana and tapasya, the Shiva or whoever he's praying to, he has to appear. But the thing is that, am I doing my tapasya? वो काम तो हमने करना है. So second movement का हमको कुछ नहीं tension लेनी. The descent, we don't have to take tension. Ascent is my personal effort. That we have to make. So just keep on making, striving the ascent. And it is, why will I make the ascent? It is actually delightful to make the ascent. Try. You will fall in love with the ascent. So not for the sake, see, Asura is wanting something from the Shiva, and that is why he is invoking the Shiva, right?
Yeah.
That may not any human being can kill me, and not any animal can kill me. Give me, grant me. So he says, okay, granted. So he comes as a nursing avatar later. All the things are taken care of. But we are not wanting that Asuric Shakti, right? So what we are sadhana, the sadhana that we are doing is just for the love of the ascension, and just for the love and surrender of the ascension, we are making ourselves go upwards, also because it doesn't make us suffer. While being in here always makes us suffer. So as an act of self-love also, we make the station upwards or deep in the heart. And when we are doing that, the second movement that you are talking of, the double movement, it automatically is taken care of. No need to worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything more? I see a lot of doubt on your face.
The psychic center that is there in the horizontal, that is behind the heart center. So ascent
Yes.
will take from the psychic center to the top, right? Means how.
So
how
now
do
we are getting lost in the logic of it, and that's not
Logic.
the very good
Yeah.
place to be. Automatically, when you remember the mother.
Yeah.
Now see, now we have at least exposure to the centers that are there where we can station. You know the depth in the heart, you know the height above. I think that's enough. Just keeping that in mind, that whenever you invoke the mother's presence in your heart or wherever in your
Yeah.
mind, you will be automatically guided to the right center. There is no one formula that can be given here. And don't worry about the formula. This is just the mechanics of trick of the logical mind. It always wants to get into the logic of it, but it cannot get it. It will not get it, the logic of it. So leave it aside, and with your pure heart, full of love and surrender for the mother, approach with the heart, not with the mind.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I just want to show this card which was in front of me for quite a long, and it, can you see?
No, not completely.
Yes, what one cannot do oneself, one can get done by calling the mother's force. To receive that and let it work in you is the true means of success in the sadhana. Sri Aurobindo. Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes.
This card is in front of me for such a long period, but when the time has come, then whatever you are saying and realizing for quite some time, and then suddenly I saw that what you are talking about is there. So the time has come by the mothers.
Thank you.
Calling of
Thank
the
you for
mother.
sharing. Yes, yes, yes. So we'll just use again Sunil Das music and concentrate above and deep in the heart. We can continue to exchange, to each his own. So just try not to indulge too much in the mechanics of it. Just go purely by the heart and we will be okay.
तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये ॐ तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, James. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Monica.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you,
Great
James.
session. And we meet again tomorrow, 4 o'clock, the
Thank you.
third and final session. Bye, everyone. Thanks for participating.
Bye.
Have a good day.